we of the planet Mars give you this warning. Listen carefully and remember, we have known your planet Earth since the first creature crawled out of the primeval slime of your seas to become man. For millennia, we have followed your progress. For centuries, we have watched you, listened to your radio signals, and learned your speech and your culture. And now you have invaded our home. Technological adults, but spiritual and emotional infants. We kept you here, deciding your fate. Had the lower forms of life of our planet destroyed you, we would not have interfered. But you survived. Your civilization has not progressed beyond destruction, war, and violence against yourselves and others. Do as you will to your own and to your planet, but remember this warning. Do not return to Mars. You will be permitted to leave for this sole purpose. Carry the warning to Earth. Do not come here. We can and will destroy you, all life on your planet, if you do not heed us. You have seen us, been permitted to glimpse our world. Go now. Warn mankind not to return unbidden.
Hey there, Adrenalheads. I'm Jerry.
And I'm Mark.
Hey, and on today's episode, we are covering the 1959 movie, The Angry Red Planet, just because we need some giant spider rat bats in our lives.
Yes, we do. I love that marionette.
All right. I love it.
Okay, well, to give you an idea of what we're covering, Jerry had already stated, we're covering The Angry Red Planet from 1959, and the synopsis is, for this particular film, Chief Warrant Officer Sam Jacobs, Dr. Iris Ryan, Professor Theodore Gettle, and Colonel Tom O'Banion are astronauts aboard the spaceship MR-1, the first mission to Mars. Shortly after their rocket reaches the mysterious red planet, the band of brave space explorers discover monstrous yet highly intelligent life forms, or alien life forms, which are first attacked, then deliver a haunting word of warning intended for all mankind.
Yes. Yeah, I love that.
Now, mind you, a lot of you people are probably not familiar. It is a 1959 film. Jerry wanted to cover this, and I've been looking to cover this to some degree because my experience with this particular film was I love 50s, kind of that old classic horror, or I wouldn't say horror, but classic monster movies at that time. Now, the Misfits being a punk band at the time, back in the 70s and into the 80s, were prevalent with talking about certain particular movies like this. The first album that they did was called Walk Among Us. And what did they have in the background of that particular album? The big angry red bat, or the marionette that we get.
Yeah, the spider rat bat.
Correct. So you picked that for that, and it had been a long time since I actually watched this film, and mind you, it lulled me to sleep at one point, and then I had to watch it a couple of more times to get back into it, but it has its own perks to it as far as like insights of society for its time that my feeling, and these are my thoughts about the actual movie, by the way. So basically, it kind of gave like how the technology was at the time for when they were filming for space flight, science at the time itself. We weren't ready to go to Mars at that point too. So it's all speculation and what they thought and how this movie was filmed and created at the time. How women were perceived during that time as well. Because if you look at Iris, or Irish, as they reference her within the movie, and how she's being treated and regarded throughout the... how many other men were there? Like 4 or 5?
There's a lot of doctors and everything. She was like the only female in the cast.
Exactly. So we have that to look at, too, within the film itself. And then on top of that, a different world that they haven't discovered yet, that we even ourselves as humans have not even discovered itself yet.
Well, with probes, very superficially.
Yeah, very limited. But with that, we'll move on, I guess, right? To the people we know within the film.
Yeah,
right,
so go ahead, Mark. Oh, you want me to go first, or should you go first?
I could go first if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Gerald Moore as Colonel Thomas O'Banion. A lot of movies, did a lot of TV in his later career. Highlights are Gilda, Rita Hayworth, Funny Girl, Bonanza, Maverick, Perry Mason, Lost in Space. Oh, awesome. Great catch on that one. Foreign Intrigue and TV show correspondence in infiltrating spy rings.
Yeah, that was the premise for Foreign Intrigue.
Yeah. So he's been around. He's in the genre, at least, with Lost in Space, at least.
Next, we have Nora Hayden as Dr. Irish Ryan. Not a lot of TV, not a lot of credits, but mostly TV. She did Gunsmoke, Bonanza, and a few other shows I've never even heard of. And I've heard of a bunch. So
yeah, I know. Her face looks familiar, so obviously she's been on other shows that we've seen before.
But not a whole lot.
Not a whole lot. Next up would be Les Tremayne, Professor Theodore Gettle. A lot of credits split between most TV and movies. Had a very distinctive voice. Most famous, at least for Jerry, War of the Worlds as General Mann.
Yeah.
Perry Mason, Bonanza, The Virginian, General Hospital. Interesting.
Yeah, and I first saw him as General Mann because I saw War of the Worlds, 1970.
Yeah, when we were younger.
Yeah, a lot younger.
Yeah, that was kind of like our introduction into the sci-fi genre at that point, too.
And a great introduction it was.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, next we have Jack Crucian, who is Sam Jacobs. He did a ton of TV, and if you look at his credits, like they go on for dang near forever. He did Bonanza, Zorro, The Rifleman, Webster, and Dragnet. And his movies include The Apartment, which I did not know, and The Last Voyage, Follow That Dream with Elvis Presley, and a movie called Lover Come Back with Rock Hudson. And when I looked that movie up, that one, he's got one of the more minor roles in it, but that one I thought bore mentioning because just from the premise alone, I want to watch the movie. It's about an ad exec who gets through a series of misunderstandings and, hijinks, as it were, has to develop an ad campaign for a product that has not been invented yet.
Well, usually that's what happens with those particular things.
Okay, and you can go ahead and finish off with the supporting.
Supporting cast would be, of all things, Ted Cassidy, voice of the Martians. Most famous for Lurch in the Addams Family. Ruck in an episode of Star Trek. Did a ton of voice work for obviously reasons, because of his deep voice. He's got that deep voice. Mostly did TV work. His work on Addams Family made it so he found work doing voices for dozens of characters in cartoons. Narrator, of course, of a show that I loved and grew up on that is Marvel-based, The Incredible Hulk, with Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno. And then he did Butch Cassidy as well. He actually did an episode of the $6 Million Man as Bigfoot as well.
I thought that was Andre the Giant.
It was, but he did come back.
He did like a secondary one?
He did a secondary one when he couldn't get Andre, so he came back in to do that. So it's pretty cool because he is so tall.
6'9".
Yeah, 6'9", exactly. He was just as tall as Andre was, not as big and bulky, but his voice. That was what brought Ted Cassidy to life. There's a lot out there about Ted Cassidy, and just to give you guys a little bit of a hint, just go to YouTube. There's a whole documentary about Ted Cassidy and his life in film and how he passed away and everything that he was involved with. So it's very interesting. So check that out if you can.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember watching Addams Family, in reruns, and that was kind of fun. It's like, and one of my brothers said, "Yeah, that guy's about 6'9", and he said, and I didn't get a full perspective on it. It's like, well, and he puts it against the door, puts a measuring tape against the door frame, and says, "That's how tall he is," and I'm like, "Holy crap on a cracker!"
Yeah, exactly. He was that tall, and Ted actually just wanted to be a regular actor too, which is curious. Not to go further deep into Ted Cassidy, but the man himself was definitely something to marvel when it came to him on TV, film, and in voice acting too, because his voice is very distinct. I think he was also in an episode of Buck Rogers too, but I could be wrong.
Might have been.
Yeah, I'm like Jerry's gears. He's like, I have to look at this.
Well, because I'm trying to think back to, because I haven't seen Buck Rogers in a long time, and I remember watching that every Saturday for a number of years, and I probably haven't seen it in
the one with Gil Gerard, right?
Yeah, maybe over 20 years. So I'll have to look that up.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to our general thoughts of the movies. Go ahead, Mark.
So, well, like I stated before, I haven't watched this movie in a long time, but I do enjoy it. Just to give you an idea, I just love the whole aspect about it. That's what I liked going back into it. Now, mind you, I said it lulled me to sleep one night because I started watching it after I came home from work for the prep for this. And I was like, after an hour, I was like, but I was like, I'm snoring away. But the funny thing is that it starts off with the techiness for the time of space travel, which kind of like enamored me. As soon as they started getting into the discussion of women and things of that nature, and within space flight, just in general, it's how they treated women. I started like dozing off until they even got to the planet itself. So I came back and went back to it. I just love the fact that, they kind of give that Thing aspect to it. And you and I covered the Thing with, who was it? It was one of the crew that gets bitten or hurt by a vine, and they got a gelatinous goo on his body.
Oh, that would be the Colonel.
The Colonel, yes. And, then they're prepped, they have to go look, and they encounter the big angry red bat, as it were, or a bat spider at that point, which was a marionette too, by the way. And you already knew that. We all knew that. I used that as the picture for the comments below, which was pretty funny. And but through all this was interesting to be looking at through the view of a woman's perspective, because at the very end we see it's Irish. That lives and breathes through this, very much like a Sigourney Weaver in Alien, and surviving the issues. The first thing that we do see is her coming out of the spaceship. She is being interrogated at that point about her issues, so it's kind of like an Aliens version of what really happened on that planet. What really happened? It's like, now mind you, they had all these recording devices. Didn't they record everything? Audio, if not?
You would think, yeah.
You would think, right? I thought it was pretty cool. The movie was pretty cool. Very similar to a Godzilla film, if you think about it, and how it's told, with waiting till the end to see what happens with the whole crew and how they were able to get back to Earth and what actually happened, basically through her vision in her eyes, like an Orson Welles reflecting on the original Godzilla back in that time. Because honestly, that's when Godzilla came out, around that period. Yeah, if you think about it.
Yeah, and for me, I really love this movie. I seriously love it, and because it's kind of it's a bit cheesy. Even by like when I was starting to understand movies, we're talking 20 years after it. When I was old enough to start understanding all this, and I liked it because it's just you just put it in your head that that's what happened, and I said just run with it, Yeah,
accept it for what it is, and just have fun with it, because it is a movie and it is fantasy or sci-fi, and that's what we're captivated by.
Yeah, and these, I call this the class of movies you like to have on like a rainy weekend morning when there's not really much you can do.
Yeah.
Just sit down or do stuff around the house and just have it on the TV.
Yeah, because it's something comfortable.
And I like, and the effects kind of make it charming, kind of like, the if I refer back to like the animated Star Trek show, where you see the plates and you see the dust on the screen with the stuff that was moving back and forth. And you got to talk. You're talking about original recordings. I haven't seen like the updated ones yet, so they may have cleaned that up some, but I seriously doubt it.
They do have Blu-ray recordings. They do clean it up a little bit. As far as a 4K release, I do not know.
Yeah, I don't. So, would that really need to be in 4K?
You'd be surprised.
Oh, really? Okay.
Of what I've seen that comes out in 4K, they actually did Godzilla movies in 4K re-release in Japan. Oh, so they will head our way into the United States. Now, mind you, with physical media not still prevalent, but you could still get it here in the States. I wouldn't be surprised if Scream Factory or some sort of Blu-ray or DVD company will actually do that in limited release, so you're able to get your hands on it. So,
all right. Well, I'm going to take a look for it, see if or look around, and see what's available.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to our favorite scenes in the movie. So go ahead, Mark.
Well, one of them. Well, I like the intro of the film, regardless of the time and what they had to work with to get this movie where it was. It looked like NASA in the early development of space travel. And that is what really intrigues me, because I love classic, historic visuals of things that were able to record, go into space flight. I visited NASA back in the day when I was a kid. Again, if you go to like DC, where they have the Aerospace Museum, you could see all of that stuff. Everything was with dials, with switches. You had the reel-to-reel tape, which was meant for data, not just recording audio, but for data itself. I'm just like enamored with that and going, wow, look at all that stuff. But yet there's a point in the film when they're all trying to figure out and reflect on what the events of the day, they're all writing it on a pad. There's no such thing as an iPad or anything, or just recording their voice of the situation or the video. So I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah. And yeah, for me, I like when it started, we have the landing of the rocket back on Earth. And this, when I saw this, when I rewatched this, and I said, that's reminiscent of the way SpaceX lands the booster.
Yes. Correct.
And it's like, so that's where they got it from.
A lot of it comes from sci-fi and fantasy films. Star Trek is a major component to that for our current technology, if you think about it nowadays, especially with technology we use. You and I speak about this all the time, which makes me, boggles my mind why you're not on a Star Trek podcast.
There's a few out there, but it's like I only have so much time.
I know that.
Okay, so go ahead and move with your next one.
Well, I always find it funny, and I said it before, and interesting, the trope within these particular films from that era that the woman lives and tells the tale of what happened. So we get to see it from Iris's point of view. She tells the story. Like I stated, it already reminisces something out of, or is fortuitous, I guess, for sci-fi films, because Ripley winds up giving her information in Aliens.
Yeah.
And in this case, it didn't take two films, and it's one film, and they just kind of combined it, and where it's a reflection of her story of what happened during that flight. And I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. And I love that it's told in flashback.
Yes.
I love that. Yeah. Okay. Next one for me is when, after they arrive on Mars, they go out for the first time, and Dr. Ryan gets attacked by this carnivorous plant, and Sam kills it with his freeze ray he named Cleo. Because it's one of those, when you look at it, it's the like this thing that kind of looks like it would be about maybe the size of about like a dinner plate, little stretched out like a dinner platter, and then it kind of tries to wrap her up.
Yep. TV dinner trying to attack you. Yep.
Yes.
No microwave though.
Oh, geez. But again, it's like one of those things that's like, yeah, let's have this thing suspended by a wire and pulled on it, and just the way it wraps everything up.
That's how they did those things, in back in that day. But that's the thing that we are attracted to when we watch these movies.
Okay, so go ahead with your next one.
Well, the redness of the planet itself. Once we get to that point, everything is stark red. Everything is that whole red background, and then everything else is translucent, and you see it. But you do see the actors. We do see that marionette when it doesn't come into place. They say it's almost like 40 feet tall?
Yeah, it's supposed to be 40 feet, but about there, like
about there. And the fact is, they do force perspective based upon it within film when they do record it. To me, I loved that particular creature. I love the plant life that was in it. But the one thing is that if you're up and awake, it keeps you awake. That redness gets you, and you have to watch it, because who actually does this anymore? Films like this, not many. Yeah, there's not many movies. Now, Thor: Love and Thunder went the route recently of like a Clerks route. So Kevin Smith really should sue Disney Marvel for taking that, because everything is black and white. So everything is in black and white in that particular movie. But this one is red. And this is awesome in the sense that it's pretty cool, because it keeps your attention, because you can't really see too much detail within it. And
that's helpful for the special effects too.
That it is. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. My next one is the actual spider rat bat scene. So when they're walking along, the crew mistake the bat legs for trees, and I'm thinking they didn't really notice or look up, because it's like it's really the only thing out there, kind of. and so that, you know, when they say get a sample, Dr. Ryan chops off one of the little spurs on one of the legs.
Yep.
And then the thing goes, you know, batshit crazy. It goes batshit crazy, and then and starts doing the scream, and they get chased around by the thing, and Ray blinds it with his little freeze ray.
Yep. Well,
and it goes running off. Yeah.
And the Colonel gets trapped at a certain point, and that's like when they freeze it.
Two rocks.
Yep. Very much Star Trek in a sense, and but his eyes go. You could actually see it. They actually make it blindish, so his eyes go white, as it were, and then it just goes scattering away. It would have been pretty cool if they were actually destroyed the bat rat or bat spider, as it were, and then be able to do another forced perspective shot where they could be in front of it. But honestly, limited funds, limited means at the time, but nonetheless, it did its.
It did its thing, yeah.
It did its job.
And this is one where, you know, watching it now, it's like, I was thinking this would have been a perfect one for Harryhausen to do.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
It would have been so perfect it was for that time, too. And the fact that, it's like, but they went with the marionette, and it did work, as kind of clunky as it was. It did work for me, because I loved the look of it, and with the red itself stood out more than anything. But they would have had to do that something specific for Harryhausen for stop motion.
Yeah.
And that would have been a different filming of the stop motion itself.
It would have probably presented more challenges than anything, and probably been able to be done. So, okay. So what's your next one?
The force field shield that they really can't leave the planet. They're like battling their brains over why they can't leave. They find out this whole structure that's there, and when they look, of all things, too, and it's showing its time, they get information about the kind of like the city on this particular graphic or whatever it was, and it's all hand sketched.
Yes,
it's all hand sketched. It shows its time. It's that year it was made. Now, mind you, it worked. They actually had clouds within the city itself and everything. I thought it was interesting, and then they actually take their boats to it.
Yeah,
those refs.
Yeah, and that's one of my things here. So
move on with it.
Yeah, so when they're rowing out in the lake off to the city, they see the city off in the distance, and they say these structures, you know, by their judgment, are about a half mile high. Which, all right, so like, you know, they have the Burj Khalifa there, and they end up getting attacked by the blob in the lake, and poor Sam, when they get back to the ship, he doesn't make it. So.
No. Well, there's always some sort of casualties in these particular movies. So
yeah, and there's also another alien that you seen peeking over the rock, which incidentally was the same one that Iris saw peeking through the window. It's kind of like looking over the happenings of it. And that does it for my scenes. So, do you have anything else on that?
I just have other notes. Let's talk about the electric shock therapy and how that was a way for them to get away from the alien life forms on the planet itself. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, at least free themselves of the blob that surrounded the ship after they ran back to it.
Yeah, and I thought that was pretty interesting. At least now we know electricity bothers them.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're on Mars in the future, please remember that. Bring the electricity shock pieces, or if not,
in freezer weapons.
And freezer bombs or anything like that. Basically bring a taser and anything with the,
like liquid,
cold intake
liquid nitrogen.
Liquid nitrogen. There you go.
Well, there's plenty of it here. There's plenty of nitrogen here. Okay, so with that, we'll move on to our interesting and facts and unknown facts about the movie. So, what do you got to start?
Well, I'll start off. You kind of fill these out, so I'll start with the first one you got here. The cameras that were used on the surface of Mars, NASA used a modified model in all of the Apollo missions to the moon. Interesting.
Next one is the acceleration couches featured in the spacecraft were aviation ejection seats designed for jet aircraft, which kind of have the same, purpose because you have that gravitational acceleration of being launched. When you're ejecting, it's a quick launch, and you have to account for that G-force as well, and you don't want to get like split open in getting ejected.
Well, maybe they had that purposely for the actors because they want to eject them right away.
Exactly.
All right, next up, Sidney Pink wrote the screenplay at his kitchen table, recruiting his children to act as critics. The draft included all sorts of creatures and an entire Martian city. The low-budget film kept all but few things from happening.
Which,
that's
and the low-budget shows.
Yeah, well, it's a low-budget movie, too, at the time.
Okay, the 40-foot bat, rat, spider, or, what are we calling it? It's like spider, rat, bat, spider, bat, whatever, is actually a marionette, about 15 inches high. And this is one of my favorites because it is just so freaking off the wall. Yeah,
honestly, Jerry, this is something that like a sci-fi fan would actually look for themselves. And I wouldn't be surprised if you find it on Etsy or something and somebody made one.
Yeah, and I like that. It's just this chimera of things.
It is. And it's got that kaiju look to it where it's so huge. But the fact that it's like a spider rat bat, and I have a thing about calling it a spider rat bat because bats are pretty much rats anyway with wings.
Okay, so go ahead on the next one. Oh, you already mentioned this one, so about.
Well, you already have it here listed before you actually went into, so I'll say it. This was the first film work for Ted Cassidy. Although not seen, he provides the voice of the Martian, so that's pretty cool.
Okay, and this one's a big one. It says the process for the red color on Mars is called cinemagic. And this is a process that used to cast a red glow over the scenes in depicting the Martian surface. And this low-cross process made the actors look similar to cartoon drawings that were used for backdrops in the shots, so that they would fit in within the low-budget and less realistic sets. And to achieve this effect, when the black and white film negative was first processed with solarization, it is called, and that's a process where partially reverses a negative, making some images or some areas of the image appear positive, which is why you see these like little white spots on faces and on the bodies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the resulting film was then tinted red. And then making a film positive was not necessary. And at the time it was produced, black and white film cost less than color film and processing. So, and the combination of using this made all these scenes for Mars not needing to produce a film positive, lowered production costs for the film. So that also helped their low budget.
Yeah. Well, Definitely cheaper than a Harryhausen film, that's for
Oh,
sure.
yes, exactly. And then go ahead and finish off the last one there.
The last one would be the one I've already mentioned. That would be the Bat Rat Spider. Is the same one featured on the cover of the album Walk Among Us by the New Jersey punk rock group The Misfits.
Uh-huh.
And it was their first album cover, too.
Yeah. Oh, I had one more. I'm sorry.
Sure.
The much touted cinemagic process used for the scenes on Mars was actually the result of a film developing mistake. Okay, and the reel became accidentally double exposed, which produced a glare that the director latched onto for use on the scenes on Mars. And the side benefit, it helped to camouflage the cheap Martian monsters and scenery. So, happy little accidents, as it were.
Yeah.
Well, I think, they took that and then said, okay, well, what did we do here to make this happen? And then made it happen even and achieved a very great result out of it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And they get all that cool stuff out of it, too. Some things happen with great mistakes. You ever notice that? Some things great come out of it and becomes either cinematic, does not even just cinematic, just world. And world, sometimes a great mistake becomes a great idea.
Yeah. Okay, with that, we'll move on to quotes. I only have a couple.
Yeah, I have a few.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and start.
Good. Oh, I'll start?
Yes.
Okay. All right, cool. That would be, the first one would be from Iris, and it makes Broadway look like a dark alley, and that, of course, is then, of course, the captain tries to make that date with Iris. Hold on to your hats, kids. Here we go. The engineer for the landing, It's like I said, this is very, sexist for its time and how they treat women.
Yeah, and nowadays I see these things and even though I like the movie, that those parts of it just make me cringe just a little, cringe a bit.
Just a little bit, yeah, I know. Because a lot of the men are you get all these men and one woman, they're all hitting on her. But she's able to hold her own, by the way.
Exactly.
So you got to watch the film. If you haven't watched the film, watch it.
Alrighty. Next one I have here is Iris describing the quote unquote amoeba that surrounds the ship. It's like an amoeba, one single cell without intelligence, nervous system and all. It reacts completely on instinct to external stimuli. We must be safe in here. The amoeba engulfs our prey and digests it with extremely strong acids, trying to get us. And my take on this one's first of all, this amoeba has an eye, which means it's not simple.
That is true. And the funny thing about that particular eye, as they left the raft, and the creature's eye went from counterclockwise to clockwise.
Yeah, it's this like a spinning siren.
What was that about? It was going counterclockwise. Next, it's going clockwise. What's going on? But also, it reminded me something out of the Blob.
Yeah.
Yeah, that amoeba.
Yeah, but what I liked was the light was like one of those party lights that just spin in a circle.
Oh yeah, I got you. Yeah,
I was like, oh god, that was just the cheesiness is there, and I absolutely love it too.
Yeah, well, we all love it for the fact it's so goofy for its time, but then they took it seriously, and probably then it was so, oh wow, this is really new high-tech sci-fi going on here. Very much like when they did the original, The Thing.
All the practical effects.
Yeah, the practical effects, too. All right, so the next one I would have would be from Sammy, and he goes, oh, 3 eyes? What a peeping Tom, eh? Because you can see 3 eyes on the ship.
Oh, yeah, and then here's another one from Sam. So here we are between 2 dots. We could miss either one of them, and we wouldn't even know it. When they're navigating between Earth and Mars.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Another one from Sammy, I would say, I guess Sammy, and he refers to himself in the third person too, by the way, everybody. I guess Sammy has to keep a good chin up now. And the Colonel goes, Sam, there's a difference from keeping your chin up and sticking your neck out. And then Iris retorts, because they just got back, Colonel, I for one know it now. And that was referring to her being attacked by the monsters beforehand with the tentacle around her neck.
Okay. The last one I have is referring to the warning. So do you have anything else before that?
Nope.
Okay. Yeah, mine is a long one, but I won't read all of it, but I'll leave it for the movie for people who want to watch the movie. But and this is where Ted Cassidy's voice comes in. It's like, talking about, and now you have invaded our home. Technological adults, but spiritual and emotional infants. It says, do as you will to your own planet, but remember this warning. Do not return to Mars. You will be permitted to leave for this sole purpose. Carry the warning to Earth. Do not come here. We can and will destroy you, all life on your planet, if you do not heed us. You have seen us, been permitted to glimpse our world. Go now. Warn mankind to not return unbidden. And I was like, that's ominous. And especially coming from Ted Cassidy, that's freaking ominous.
It is ominous, but it's funny the way it sounds, though. If you look at it today, it's like, hey, don't put your trash on our planet. Don't come here. You're not allowed. This is not a nude beach, and you can't come here.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's great.
It is. It's something to be watched. You could actually find this on YouTube with ads too.
Oh, is it?
Listeners.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you guys really want to watch this movie, you can't find it anywhere, just go onto your YouTube. If you have an Apple TV or a Roku and you have a YouTube account, just search Angry Red Planet. You'll see it free with ads as long as you have that, Google account, and you should be able to watch it. Mind you, you'll get television ads like we did back in the day. Nothing doesn't have advertisements or advertisements like they do on regular TV, as they usually do now. I don't even watch regular TV, but you still have advertisements there. They're commercials. So YouTube does the same thing, because that's how they're going to get paid. That's how you're able to get your free content. But you could actually go see the movie on that. So just all you have to do is search it on YouTube and struggle through the advertisements.
Yeah, and it's a fairly short movie too, so it's
it is
a lot of time.
It's under 2 hours. Mm-hmm. It's about maybe an hour and 40 minutes,
about that,
which I was surprised.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, when I looked at the time allotment for it, I'm like, wow, it's pretty long for an older film like that. Usually they're within an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, these were famously short. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that one, we will go to our ratings of the movie. So, Mark, would you rate this?
For a movie that was made in 1959, given its budget, my love for that kind of cinema, and given the allure to it for the Walk Among Us album cover that I always notated for, and I've seen it before, and the fact that it's prevalent in sci-fi and horror conventions that I go to, I have to give it a 7.5. Based upon the story, how it was told, that red masking within the film itself on the Angry Red Planet, that's a 7.5 for me for its time.
Yeah, and for me, I'm also a 7.5. For a lot of the same reasons, because I do like the story. I do like that. Not a whole lot of movies of this time, even more popular movies, were not told in flashback, and the special effects, because they are unique to the film.
Cool.
Yeah. And I like the fact that she's the sole not the sole survivor, but the one that survives to tell the story. So
she was there to tell the tale, as it were. A movie that's very similar to something that I love. I could list this as my less popular movie or guilty pleasure movie, and we can move right along into that, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, that would be Life Force.
Oh, wow. It's been a while for me. That one. Oh, my goodness.
So what year that came out? It came out in the early 80s. I think maybe 84.
Sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the exact date, but you guys can't really hold me accountable for it, but definitely Life Force within the 1980s. And you got the guy who was in... you got Sir Patrick Stewart's in it, of all things.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Again.
Now Jerry's going to write that down.
Another one to watch. A rewatch, I should say.
Think about space vampires, ladies and gentlemen. So, Life Force is amazing like that. So they go out very much similar to this, where they go out in space. It's a space crew. They encounter a section of space. They find these people out there in the middle. They bring these, what look like coffins, on board. One happens to be, they open it up. It's a woman. She's naked. And she's beautiful. But obviously, she's a model who portrays it. So she doesn't really speak much. I think she was a French actress. A heavy English cast for the actors involved, especially with Patrick Stewart when he had hair. And yeah, and they come back to Earth, and hell wreaks on Earth with these space vampires. So check that out.
Okay. Mine also has to deal with people dealing with unintended consequences of encountering life forms. From 1968, The Green Slime. Have you ever?
Is that similar to the Blob?
Well, no, this is
stuff?
Oh, you have not seen The Green Slime.
No, I have not.
Oh,
you're
Mark.
enlightening me at this point.
Oh, Mark. No. Oh, dude. I mean, I wanted to align cheesy with even more cheesy.
Okay.
Oh my God. The monsters in this one are phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Alrighty, then.
Yeah, it's the movie that can be classified as so bad it's good. Oh, good Lord, Mark! I cannot believe you. You know,
nope,
you
of all people,
of all people, you. I think even like it's
Jamie would know it
probably, but it's an obscure one.
Okay,
but it's within our our wheelhouse of taste for movies, and this is one of the cheesy ones, and it's like the champion of it.
All right, I gotta check that one out when I get a chance.
Yeah, I have not seen that one available on YouTube, but it is it's might be on one of the obscure services with commercials that I don't have, or
Tubi or Peacock,
yeah, probably,
or not Peacock. There's another one that does it, but yeah, Tubi is one. They tend to get like a lot of shows or movies that you just don't see anywhere. You could actually get riff tracks. Now, mind you, listeners, if you get it on Roku, Apple TV, you're able to get it. Download the app. There are advertisements, but Tubi actually has their own content of movies too as well. They just did one recently with Bruce Willis and Michael Rooker for Corrective Measures, and it's the last Bruce Willis movie you could get. He doesn't really voice too much, but he's there. But Rooker is very prominent in the film. But yeah, you could find some of those rare, strange movies out there that you just can't find anywhere on Tubi. So check it out.
Yeah, there's a one from the 80s that I want to do on that movie with Damien. So
cool.
Yeah, I'll suggest that one to him, see if he wants to do that one sometime in the future.
I'm sure he's got a long list. Right now he's on vacation, so I was able to get Top Gun Maverick out.
Yeah, I did listen to that one. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And with that, we'll go ahead and do we have any feedback, or did we?
I just checked my email, and I didn't see anything on AdrenalineCinema@gmail.com or on the Facebook page where I posted The Angry Red Planet. The next movie I did not post, but a lot of people had sent in feedback regarding that they loved the fact. I think people you and I know from the Zheads on that stating that they were surprised that we're covering the apes, which we're going to be moving on to on our next episode that we'll be moving into just after this. So, but yeah, all you guys have to do, and with that, we'll talk about feedback right now. So to submit your feedback, all you have to do is go to the Facebook page, and it would be facebook.com/AdrenalineCinemaPodcast. And I did post a picture. And if you are not subscribed or following, please do so. With that, you'll see a picture of what we're covering. And all you have to do is leave your comments in the image below of what we're covering next. I try to keep that up as best I can. Obviously, I didn't do that for Escape from the Planet of the Apes, but I did it for The Angry Red Planet. But all you have to do is leave it there. Or you could just go to our email and just send a regular email, to us, and we'll read it. A regular standard email, and that could be sent to AdrenalineCinemaPodcast@gmail.com. Now, you could just type out a regular formatted email, or you just record yourself and put it as a voicemail. Everybody has that way of doing that with the phone nowadays, and we'll play it, and we'll pop it into the actual podcast when we're recording, and we'll talk about it, and listen to your thoughts as they're live as we're recording. And that's about it. That's all you have to do. I don't have a Twitter or Instagram or anything like that, but those are the best ways to send it out there. But with that, we'll move right into where can listeners hear you?
Well, aside from other episodes of Adrenaline, I could be heard on Watched It in the 80s, an episode of Run for Your Lives where we did Mars Attacks, one episode of Wilhelm a while back where we did a car chases.
Yep.
And I think, I think that's it. So, yeah.
You've been on a variety. You've been
Yes.
steady on this one, as well as, coming on and popping on to everybody else. I think Run for Your Lives is the best.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, we'll talk about everything else on the Pirate Core Entertainment Network, which would be Fantasy Picks Movie Edition. They're a newer podcast onto the network, so you can check them out. Rob and his co-hosts of many will be talking about a variety of films. And it's literally just recasting those films that you just don't like. Or, it was so high budgeted and people got to go see it and they didn't like it. And they're like, oh, Phantom Menace? Star Wars? How can we fix that? So they kind of fix it with, if you could change an actor, if you could change the story in some way, maybe you could change the director or producer, maybe the music. That's what they talk about there. And then they have a top 5 of certain cinema stuff, like similar to what Wilhelm does with Ben on Ben Beck does on the Next Level Online Radio Podcast Network, or nextlevelonlineradio.com. And there's also Run for Your Lives, like Jerry had mentioned with Daphne and Paige. They cover everything that makes you run for your lives. So, that would be suspense films, monster films. Usually it's monster films.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting on the Jurassic World Dominion movie.
Oh, are you going to be on that one?
I don't think so, but I'm waiting to hear it.
At the very least, hear it, yes.
Yeah, they're on there doing their thing too. And then watched it in the 80s with Damien and his coverage of all things 80s. I kind of sent out a couple of feelers of movies that I would like to cover with them, but, Space Camp being one of them. The Explorers had Ethan Hawke and River Phoenix in it back in the day. Such an older film. Kind of kid, kind of campy. But I like doing those things too. But listen to Damien when he does that. He just published the same thing I did with Top Gun Maverick.
Oh, you did it in crossover.
Yeah, it's a crossover.
Oh,
so
okay.
So that way, those people who've never listened to Adrenaline Cinema get to hear what we do there. And then those who never listened to watch it into the 80s could actually listen to what Damien does there. Because it was kind of a cross mix. I did the unknown or interesting facts of Top Gun Maverick. And then he brought in everything else that he does for
excellent.
watching in the 80s.
Oh, that is cool, yeah.
Yeah. So it was kind of like a mishmash.
Yeah.
And Rima is in the middle of it because she did both podcasts.
And I know she's a big Top Gun fan.
Yeah. So with that, that's our show. And I'd like to thank everybody for listening. I'm Mark.
And I'm Jerry.
And this was Adrenaline Cinema Podcast. And we'll talk to you guys later.
See you later.